Hello, my name's George Cairns, and in this video lesson we're going to use Digital Photo Professional 4, Canon's free image editing software, to process a photograph to counteract a variety of lens-related distortions. Now, the distortion in our start file is quite subtle, but it is noticeable when you correct it using Digital Photo Professional 4's lens correction tools, and I'll show you those in just a tick. There's a little bit of barreling in this photograph where the horizontal lines are actually curving outwards slightly, as if the photograph has been wrapped around a barrel and distorted. And there's also a little bit of vignetting going on there, where the sky is a bit darker at the top and at the edge compared to down here, and that's due to the amount of light changing as it enters the edge of the lens. But we can correct that using the lens correction tools and the peripheral illumination tool, as you'll see in just a tick. But first of all, copy our start file onto your computer's hard drive and then browse to it in the folder window here, and it'll appear as a thumbnail. We can then go to Edit Image and start to use the lens correction tools to counteract these subtle lens distortions. And the tools we want are collected in this lens correction palette here, so click to select that, and you'll notice we've got a little sub window showing a preview of the image. This is magnified, but it's quite useful at spotting things such as chromatic aberration. So what I'm going to do is click here and then make a sample of this area here. Click. We can now sample that section. We're looking at it at 1:2, which is a bit large. I'm going to go to 1:1, which shows the actual pixels. And that's a good way of spotting color fringing or color blur that you might see clinging to the edge of contrasting objects. So in this example here, there isn't really any color fringing to worry about. Let me just scroll down a little bit and have a look at some of these tools here. Now, what we've got is a peripheral illumination tool. Watch the edges here when I turn this on. I'll just click here and you can see that the sky lightens up now and we have an even exposure. The color and tones are much more even compared to the unedited version. There's the before. You can see it's much darker at the top and indeed at the bottom. Watch this area here when I turn peripheral illumination back on. There you go. You can see it's corrected it quite dramatically. You can reduce the amount of correction to 0 by dragging the slider to the left, or increase it quite high to create a more evenly exposed picture without any vignetted edges. The next slider is chromatic aberration. If we click here, we can then have a closer look at the sub window, and if there were any fringes here, red for example, we could counteract by dragging this slider to the right, and if we had blue fringes, again we could drag this slider to the right as well. Let me take that right down to the far left there, and you might notice a little bit of red down the bottom of this section here, but it's very, very subtle, so you don't really need to worry about chromatic aberration for this particular shot. It is worth having a look at sharpness when you're in this close. If we turn sharpness off, you can see that the original photograph is quite blurred, so it's well worth clicking the sharpening button here to create a print with more punch. Color blur, that's just very similar to chromatic aberration. You might find some red or blue fringes in the highlighted areas of the image, so you can try clicking that to get rid of those. In this case, we don't really have a problem with color blur, but distortion is much more noticeable. Let me just click here and watch the whole photograph when I do that. There's the after version, and you can see that the middle of the photograph gets pushed inwards to counteract these slightly curved barreled edges. Let me turn that off again. There's the before. Click. There's the after. So there is a subtle but noticeable effect when you counteract geometric distortion like this. And you can reduce the amount of the correction by using this slider here. So that's quite barreled and curvy, and then this straightens those curves out and gets rid of that barreling distortion. The photograph also has perspectival distortion, where these vertical lines are converging inwards rather than running parallel with the edge of the frame, but Digital Photo Professional 4 can't correct converging verticals. It can only correct geometric distortions such as barrel or pincushion distortions. And if you use a fisheye lens, then you can use this extra effect drop-down menu to counteract the extreme distortion produced by various fisheye lenses. And talking of lenses, you can also use a lens profile to counteract distortion more effectively. We can click here to add lens data. At the moment it's saying there's no lens data attached to this photograph, so let's click to browse a variety of different lenses. You need an internet connection to do this, and if we scroll down you can see we've already got some lenses attached to Digital Photo Professional 4, but this bold one here is the actual lens used to take this particular photo. DPP4 is reading the photograph's metadata, so it knows which lens was used to take the picture. So all we need to do is click here to add this particular profile, and then click Start. And then you'll see a little log as it downloads and updates Digital Photo Professional 4 with this particular lens profile. Shouldn't take too long to do. There we go. I just need to type in my password, and it's now installing that lens profile into Digital Photo Professional 4. We can click here to double check that that's done that. Yes, indeed. So let's click Close And there we are with lens data attached. And because DPP4 knows more about the lens used, it can get a better looking photograph. Let me just turn sharpness off for the moment. You can see things are looking very blurred. But if we turn on the digital lens optimizer that uses this lens data, watch this little preview up here. It's just applying that now. And we can see that this little preview is looking much sharper without the sharpness button being ticked. And that means we can get a sharper looking shot using the digital lens optimizer without running the risk of adding sharpening artifacts such as halos by using the tools down here. You can also dial up the amount of correction using the optimizer slider like so. And you could always add a little bit of sharpening if you wanted to, but you could dial that down a little bit more and reduce the settings here just to keep artifacts at bay. And the other really good thing about using the digital lens optimizer and the lens profile is that it gets rid of chromatic aberration in a click. And you can see these sliders are now grayed out because they're no longer needed, because any color fringing will be removed thanks to the lens profile and the digital lens optimizer.